Hello, good morning, welcome. I'm Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor. You are listening to Damn Radio. We come to you live from the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio every morning, 7:30 to 9 a.m. You can listen to us live at damradio.com/live, or you can go to internationalflavor.com and pick up all the prior programs. If you feel the urge, you can call us at 573-746-8020 if that's exciting. And sometimes I even answer. I got some music selections picked out for you today that I was just thinking about coming over to the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio. I don't know why, it just kind of struck me. And so I thought I would play some of them for you when I feel like it. Amid my coffee and my stories of Venezuela. So apparently the Trump theft of piracy. Well, the world's all about piracy. We all want to be pirates. Arg, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I wish to be a pirate. I even think I want the patch on the eye. There's a certain style to that I'd like to have a bit of style, because I have none. And so I'd like to have some. So Wall Street Journal came out with something the last few days. I was reading upon it. And, it's not that they're saying Venezuela is not producing any oil. It's not that they're saying there isn't any investment in Venezuela. It's that, I don't know. The only thing positive that they had to say basically is that, Washington has succeeded in redirecting and piratizing and somewhat monetizing Venezuelan oil for us, not for Venezuela, who owns it, but for us. We took all the money and put it in a bank in the Middle East somewhere under the shadowy, shadowy rulership, the management of the Trump administration that doesn't have to say anything about that money. It's outside the budget. Which is kind of weird, and it's outside any government overreach. Maybe, there's still mystery surrounding where the money is going. But so we've successfully piratized it. We've redirected and monetized it for us, not for them. But it hasn't produced anything remotely resembling the $100 billion investment boom that Trump advertised. And, most of us are still pretty, distressed about the manner in which it occurred. Or not. Maybe some people are out going, yeah, we're bigger than Venezuela. You think? They need to listen to us, or we'll just come over and beat them up and bully them. But let's think about this. Where's our $100 billion investment boom? What happened to that? Where's the oil sales, oil revenue, increased export, or actual new capital investment? Where is it? And how does the line keep getting blurred? So the recent Wall Street Journal article is called "American Oil Majors Are Trying to Get into Venezuela, but They've hit a Wall." It's basically finding that there's plenty of damage, according to them, to the administration's narrative. 7 months after Maduro was neutralized, we took him out, we brought him and charged him with possession of a machine gun in New York. 7 months later, Exxon Mobil, Chevron, and the other majors haven't made any sort of enormous investment commitment like Trump was predicting. probably because they know that a presidency is a blip on a computer screen in the big picture, and they try to think long term. So companies in America, they do think long term. But you know who doesn't? The government. They think on little 4-year cycles, and it's kind of an irritant because everybody else is watching trends and watching stuff. You don't watch a trend in the government. You watch what's happening for the next 2-3 years, and whatever the drama is that surrounds the current administration or whoever's in charge or whoever's making the most noise or whoever died or whoever's screwing who, or, you know, what are we doing? Where's all the excitement here? And, you know, that's the important part. So Exxon Mobil, Chevron, and the other, you know, BPs of the world and stuff, they are basically thinking far more long-term than their government is. No major investment yet because they know this is probably a short-lived drama cycle. Just like the drama club in high school, it can only last until there's a new head of the drama club next time around, next time they vote for the class president. So the companies are competing for a relatively small number of attractive fields, and negotiations with Caracas have pretty much stalled. So then, over the weekend, the journal's Mary Anastasia O'Grady sharpened that point considerably by saying Trump's Venezuelan oil boom sputters. And she points out what I think is probably one of the best statistics to review. Venezuela reportedly has two, according to her, 2 active drilling rigs. 2. That's it. So the largest fields in the world, the large is 2 rigs. We got 2. So at the country's late 1990s, 2. I mean, we're talking 2 rigs. What the hell? You got more than that in a county in Texas or Wyoming. You can't drive down the road in in the western parts of South Dakota without driving past a bunch of those little oil rigs. You know, the ones that go up and down. Now, granted, that's not the big ones out in the Gulf or anything like that. But but 2, we got 2 at the country's late 1990s peak of roughly 3.4 million barrels a day. Venezuela still only had around 119 oil rigs. Okay, that's relatively small in the big scheme of things. But now they only have 2. Reuters reported in April that 14 mothballed rigs were going to be assessed, repaired, prepared for possible return. But even adding all of these 14 would still leave the industry nowhere remotely near its historic drilling capacity or intensity. And that is the story. You know, so we engaged in piracy. We captured a president, all because of narco-terrorism at first, and then it swapped into oil theft. You know, we have to steal the oil, and we got to be pirates. Arr, arr, we're going to be pirates. Arr, narco-terrorism. Yep, we can say that and blow up little boats, and so that everybody's afraid to, cruise around in the Caribbean. You know, you don't want to take a boat down there. Hell with that. You're going to be a narco-terrorist. Don't go anywhere down there in your own boat. You get blown up. And granted, that's not happened now for a little while, but they sold us all this narco-terror. Whatever happened to that? We defeated it. Oh, I see. By moving the blockade to Cuba. You know, we're dinking around in places we shouldn't be, of course. So Trump announced an ambition for something like $100 billion in new investment, taking care of All of those Venezuelans, we're going to take care of them. Oh, yeah, we're taking care of them, all right. Venezuela's own government in January projected $1.4 billion in hydrocarbon sector investments for all of 2026. Somehow they just don't seem to add up. 1.4 versus 100 billion. They're not directly comparable in every respect. Trump's 100 billion was a broad and long-term number, which so far hasn't shown up at all. But the order of magnitude difference is, a far better reflection of what the story is than anything you hear from the administration. Something has improved, though. Well, let's talk about this. Venezuelan exports have recovered, which they were all going to China before, which, they were doing all the investment. That's where all the money was doing. So all they really did was transfer investment over to, steal it back from, allegedly steal it back because it's allegedly still the peoples of Venezuela. I don't believe that. If it was Venezuela's, they could do with it what they wanted. But and then if that's the case, why in the hell is Maduro sitting in jail? Because he traded with China? That's a hell of a lot different than narco-terror and possession of a machine gun. Possession of a machine gun, if you're the president of another country, I don't have any problem with. If you want to have a machine gun, prop it up against the side of your bed in some faraway country, great, not my problem. But apparently it's a problem for the Trump administration because, boy, they charged that, right? Let's see. Reuters data in July for the exports show around 1.16 million barrels per day, with roughly 786,000 barrels of that going to the United States. Now, I believe that's a pretty big change. Yeah. The highest U.S. inborn, let's see, the highest U.S. bound volume since early 2019. Chevron's joint venture also is producing substantially more oil than before. Venezuelan reporting put their recent output at about 280,000 barrels a day for Chevron. Chevron also signed a real agreement in April expanding its position in the Orinoco Belt. It increased its interest in one venture and obtained development rights adjacent to Petropiar in exchange for returning other assets. So that is some real commercial activity. And there's some smaller examples of actual capital going in the ground. Venezuelan reports say that the Argentinian company Aldil Energia brought 4 drilling rigs into the country as part of a $20 million equipment investment, and says roughly $100 million has gone into its Maracal Pasado project. Repsol and PDVSA have signed a memorandum of understanding for expanded cooperation, and Shell has also entered a technical financial arrangement. So you can't really say there's no investment, but you can say, we've had some activity, there's been some incremental investment and a little more production, but there hasn't been anything resembling Trump's promised $100 billion reconstruction rush by American big oil. And now the Wall Street Journal, arguably the most important financial news organization on the planet, agrees. So you got activities, investment, and all they've done. So, and part of the problem that I have with it, and some of the analysts are saying it in this way, China was seriously investing. China, and the whole reason for this, the Maduro capture, the Maduro false flag BS of regime change and stealing him and pirating him away to the U.S. where people just forget about him and he goes to prison is because we're the biggest swinging wiener on the planet, and we can. And so we did. And there's no I don't think anybody even disputes that anymore because the facts are coming out at this. I mean, everybody's known it ever since the stealing of Maduro from Venezuela. This has nothing to do with narco terrorism, right? It's there's no narco terrorism. That's not what this was about. You know, blowing up a few ships, establishing a blockade. That was all to steal the oil, and everybody pretty much admitted it after the fact. But, you know, we have short memories because the drama club, you know, and all that stuff, you want to circle back to that, we can. So let's see. 13 billion in oil sales doesn't equal 13 billion in investment. So recent reporting estimates that more than 13 billion in Venezuelan oil has been sold through the U.S.-controlled system since January. Xinhua, which reports to Financial Times and Koppler Analysis, says the U.S. has received or controlled more than $13 billion in Venezuelan oil sale proceeds. That we're stealing the money, okay? But it also reports a huge accounting discrepancy. Venezuela's public tracker shows only one $300 million transfer, while a State Department official said $3 billion has been transferred. Lawmakers from both parties are asking for greater transparency. Trump publicly treated those billions as evidence of the success of Venezuela and has gone so far as to suggest that Venezuelan oil revenues effectively paid for the military problem. But there's a serious problem with that formulation. Trump's own executive order, number 14373, says the opposite about whose money this is. The order says that Venezuelan natural resources deposited in the Treasury are property of the government of Venezuela. It says the U.S. holds them solely in a custodial and governmental capacity, not as a market participant, and specifically requires the Treasury to identify the funds as Venezuelan sovereign property and not as the property of the United States. So how are you claiming that it paid for the operation so the Venezuelans got to pay for their own operation? Are you stealing that money? I mean, is there even any international law that applies here when you steal another country's resources and pirate the whole damn region? Or just... Well, it's important because we had to get rid of them damn Chinese. We had to get rid of them. Geez, you can't have them running around the planet. You know, you don't want that. And so better us stealing it than the Chinese? Is that the argument? What does Venezuela get out of it? Nothing. At least they were getting some of it when it was the Chinese. But now it's we're going to hold it on behalf of the Venezuelans, and we're going to dictate what they get to do with it because we're not going to release it to them. Right? That's what the order says. It says this is not the property of the United States. If the money belongs to Venezuela and the United States is just the custodian, how exactly did Venezuela's money pay for the war? The administration can answer that the operation generated conditions that increased Venezuelan revenue and that money is being administered for the Venezuelan government because, you know, God knows you should only get your allowance. When you turn 18, your parents should only give you an allowance. You know, you guys aren't smart enough to handle this yourselves. So only the great deal maker that is Donald Trump will be the one to tell you as a country where your money will and should be spent, right? The administration could say that the operation generated conditions, of the revenue. But that's very different from the statement, to the victor belong the spoils, because the executive order itself says it's not our money. So there are really three buckets of oil. There's oil being pumped. That's called production. There's oil being shipped to America. That is trade, new trade in America. We already talked about that. And then there's money received from selling that oil that is revenue. But apparently nobody's paying for it because there's only been $300 million transferred of $3 billion. So where is it? That's what I want to know. New money that is spent on rigs, wells, pipelines, upgrades, and refineries is the investment part. So Trump can point convincingly to the first three, that there is revenue, there is some trade, and there is some production. But there sure isn't much in investment, upgrades, and refineries and stuff like that. And so this fourth point is nowhere close to the spectacularly advertised number that this was all about the oil, and boy, we get rid of Maduro and suddenly we're going to have some oil and blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Throw in some more blahs just for good measure. So why are the big companies not rushing in? Let's talk about Exxon first. Exxon examined the Cerro Negro heavy oil operation in the Orinoco Belt and found badly deteriorated wells and an upgrader that requires extensive repair. The Journal reported that restarting that project will require billions of dollars up front. And Exxon has unresolved grievances arising from the Chavez area, nationalizations of property, and they want durable legal and commercial protections before committing enormous capital. And everybody knows when Trump leaves office, we're going right back to business as usual. Nobody's going to keep doing what they're doing. Marco Rubio isn't going to be the president of Venezuela. I strongly doubt he'll be the president of America. I sure as hell wouldn't vote for him. No way. Not happening. You know what? I want a middle of the roader. That's what I want. That is what I want. And I want an independent. I want an independent. I want to start a party called the Independent Party. And all those people they talk about that control the elections, I want those people to vote in the so-called independent party. You know, if we're going to run for office, let's just create our own independent party. That's what we have, or we should have. And I think I'm going to create one. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
Hello.
Hello. How do you feel about an independent party?
I'm fine. Hey, when you were going on about Fauci,
when was I going on about Fauci?
Last week.
That was days ago.
Right.
Well, we're not talking about Fauci. We're talking about Maduro.
Okay.
You know, you need like, you know what I should do? I should put, this is my fault, not yours. I should put out the beginning of every show what the topics are going to be and what I will talk about on the phone, because I'm here talking about ExxonMobil and why they're not getting in, talking about Maduro, the theft of Venezuelan oil, piracy of the United States Navy, and all these exciting topics, and you get on and want to change the subject.
You was all about it for a whole show.
Yeah, but that show's over. Why didn't you call it on that show and talk about Fauci?
I probably did.
That's the point. Because you never talk about the show that I'm giving. You call it, you go elsewhere. The hell is that?
Can I make my point, brother?
I suppose you can. Go right ahead. Your program.
All those questions that you had, you named a bunch of them off. You had like a whole list, right?
I still have Fauci questions. I just don't want to talk about them today.
Right. So, why does Senate call him in? They can't just do an investigation without an interview. Can't they find that information without speaking to the man?
They already have the information. They got all his prior statements. They just like, what do you call it? They would like him to pay penance. He's an old man. Well, they want to arrest him and stuff him in jail. This is how small-brained government workers react.
Well, I have questions about it too, and I think our our Congress is seriously lacking. That a Senate inquiry should have been done. We should be able to read a report about what was manipulated and what was fact. Fact.
But they bring him in to have him testify. But mainly, the reason they're bringing him in, and this is, I tend to agree with you that I don't believe the man will ever pay for the damage he allegedly did, or most likely did. He won't pay for it anyway. They already gave him immunity for everything he did, and so now anything he does after the fact is nothing but drama and Facebook posts and distraction from
the Epstein file and
distraction from anything important going on today. If you can go back and litigate the past instead of focusing on what issues are going on today, or if you can use him as the poster child for throwing a Democrat in jail, you finally make the red meat for the MAGA masses. We get to chew up on this guy. I don't see the point of it because nothing's ever going to happen to the guy. More importantly, I don't care what happens to him. The fact is, the system itself remains unchanged, and nothing they do to him is going to change the system. The next guy is going to be able to act with impudence just like he did and do exactly what he wants to do. Only the MAGAites will all be going, this is great, our guy gets to do what he wants. Why? Because a guy who was strongly supportive of the Democrats got to do it before, and so therefore it's our turn to do it. And so what it creates is one-upsmanship and escalation of, Trump got lawfared, and I believe that, and I never believe the government should be used for that kind of BS.
You don't believe that he falsified?
I don't care that he falsified. I give a crap. What difference does it make?
Well, because he's the president of the United States.
And they all do it. That's the point.
No, they don't.
Oh, my ass. You telling me that Biden didn't create stories? Russia. Come on, that's the easy one.
Why don't they drag out his files and prosecute him?
Because that is foolish. What the hell good does it do? Somebody needs to change the system, not punish bad past actors. Because you're going to spend all this time. How much time and money have we wasted chasing Fauci, who's already been successful? What somebody needs to do is focus on changing the system so that people like him, number one, don't get in power, and number two, aren't able to cock everything up the way that he did and use it like his own personal toy.
Yeah, if we somehow could have somebody that represented us.
Well, that's never going to happen. It isn't. You think the Democrats represent any sort of us out there? The Democrats do that. The Republicans don't. The only chance you got is a remote one person in.
I'm a progressive. Democrats aren't progressive. They're part of the. They're part of the system.
They're definitely part of the problem, and all the deep state BS that goes along. They're a huge portion of it. But don't go pretending, Republicans out there, that the Republicans aren't in bed with the same damn thing. Particularly on the national level, the world level. It's uniparty for sure.
We spent all day talking about Russia yesterday.
Is that bad?
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoy it. I like talking about it. It's a hobby of mine. I've been doing it for years.
No, I picked up on that.
You think?
I sense that maybe.
So you bring me in to talk about Fauci, who I don't give a rip about. I could care less what Fauci does.
You did a whole show on the distraction.
Because it was newsworthy at the time, kind of like Venezuela is now at the time, because the Wall Street Journal's coming out and poking holes in Donald Trump's theory, and I'm following up on that. And you're going back and trying to get me to discuss Fauci, who I don't even care about.
Talking about.
What happened?
I'm talking about the broken system. Congress should already know those answers to those questions.
Well, they should, but they don't. They're too busy running their own little drama club.
Mm-hmm.
Do you disagree with me? What else are they doing? They doing anything for you right now that you can identify?
No.
I can't identify anything they are doing for me right now. Nothing. Not one thing.
And talking about Fauci changed that.
I didn't talk about Fauci. You're bringing up Fauci.
You did talk about Fauci for a whole show.
Okay, but that was a week ago. Or two. That was a while ago. What's that got to do with today and Maduro? I wanted to get to the charge of him getting charged with carrying a machine gun, and how they're possibly gonna argue that in front of a jury. It doesn't matter. That's already been selected as well. Don't go thinking that just because he's got a jury trial that anything remotely like justice is going to occur. You know, he just needs to plead guilty like anyone else and move on.
I think it's irrelevant. Hey, I have a suggestion for tomorrow's show.
Please do. What do you think?
What do you know about the Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia line?
I'm actually paying attention to some of that. So they're calling that the Muslim NATO, and I've been studying up a little bit on that. How about I get back with you tomorrow on that?
Well, all right. Well, why don't you notify me that you're going to do that?
I just notified you. What more notification do you need? I just told you. I told you directly, right to your ears, that I was just reading up on that, and I think I will talk about it tomorrow.
Who brought it up?
Say what? Hello?
Yeah, man. You have like a logical disconnect or something.
Well, perhaps I'm illogical. Perhaps I'm not Spock.
Yeah, perhaps, because you had just said that maybe I should give people a clue about what I'm going to speak about the next day, and then I gave you a topic.
And I said, I'll talk about that tomorrow.
No,
so I just told you.
I was going to talk about that anyways.
So I just
then
told
you. Why did I have to bring it up?
Well, I don't know, because you felt the need to bring it up. I was going to talk about it regardless. There's an interesting story about it that I read in, which one was it? Times of India, I think it was, that I was reading about it, and they're talking about Erdogan and creating the Muslim NATO. Mm-hmm. I'll share that with you tomorrow. But right now, I want to get back to Exxon and Chevron and Mobil and China and oil in Venezuela. Do you have anything related to that you want to talk about?
No, I don't suppose. I think that we need some kind of international court or police.
We already have one, and we only use it. That is another joke.
Well, we need an effective one.
Well, they're not effective. The UN is not effective, not remotely.
We need an effective one.
Well, but you're never going to get one. The ICC is completely ineffective. The International Criminal Court, the UN court is extremely ineffective.
Yeah, I know. You said that. Why can't it work?
Well, because the U.S. and the West do not follow the rules. They put rules in place, and then they create their own set that are mysteriously called the rules-based order, but they never follow them themselves.
The International Court should punish them.
But they never do. You know, Netanyahu's got arrest warrants for him.
You're saying we have something that we don't have.
What am I saying that we don't have?
You're saying we have an international court, and we might have something named that, but if it doesn't function, it's not an international court.
Hey, listen, just like in America, a system is only as valid or as valuable as the people who enforce it. And we don't enforce it any more than the international community enforces the ICC or the UN Security Council or the UN, the Group of 20, any of those things. They ignore them. The U.S. completely ignores them. They have for years.
It doesn't work.
Of course it doesn't work. That's what I'm pointing out. It's a waste of time and money because it's all about who's got the biggest wiener, just like it always has been.
It's a necessity.
How is it a necessity? We haven't used it so far.
Because, what?
We haven't used it so far. How is it possibly a necessity?
Because Israel's doing war crimes and we're doing war crimes, and no telling who else. I know there's going to be some whataboutism. I'm sure there's some bad people doing war crimes too, but there should be an international consensus.
There should be, but there isn't.
I know you keep saying that, brother.
Well, it's true. How long has India been saying this? India is the largest country on the planet, and they don't even get a seat at the table. They're completely ignored. You know that? I mean, absolutely, completely ignored across the board.
The most people and a decent power, they should be at the top of the list of people.
Well, I don't know about that, but they should at least be involved in the process, and they're not. And who's been bitching about that for at least the last 30 years? India. But it doesn't do them any good. So why are they creating their own entities? You know, like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, like the BRICS, like any of the ones from the Far Eastern countries that are starting to create their own regional actors. Why do you think that? I mean, I say this all the time. Why do you think they are talking different mechanisms? Because the U.S. holds all the cards. Why do you think Donald Trump is stealing oil in Venezuela and attempting to steal it in Iran and be a pirate of the planet? Because the U.S. is losing grip on the financial controls of the world. That's what's happening. And it's a huge...
JR says he's doing it on purpose.
Well, of course he's doing it on purpose. He wants to control the money. The next generation of money is crypto, and he wants to control all the crypto. Just like we controlled everything after Bretton Woods, that's what's happening.
Inconveniences when he wrecks the dollar?
Well,
do you think the average person... You think the average person is going to celebrate?
I'm not going to celebrate. I think it's wrong. I think you attract more flies with honey than you do with the idiocy of what we're doing worldwide. I've said that consistently for 2-3 years.
Bad policy.
Absolutely. Internationally, I've always said that.
Well, yeah, internationally, and what about collecting tariffs and then giving them back to Amazon and the big retailers?
I'm no fan of the huge tariffs either. Although,
what do you like about him? Just the hair and the mouth.
I wish I had his hair. If I had his hair and his money, I'd probably be happy.
God damn, man. I got to go, bro.
Thanks for stopping by. Have a nice day.
Bye.
And there he goes. Well, after that brief interlude into the lunacy that is the United States government and the drama session that goes around the planet on a daily basis, we have to, the drama club, those are the important people in the high school. We got the jocks working over in the Department of War. We got put me in coach, making sure that everything is okay over there. We have the cheerleaders in the economic department. The cheerleaders are all over there doing their typing and their administrative stuff, and they're the cheerleaders for war and the Marco Rubios of the world and the administrative state, right? And, I suppose the jury is still somewhat out on my end for the hell's his name? J.D. Vance's of the world. I'm not saying he's the answer, but he appears to me, especially since they quit focusing him. He doesn't get any airtime. You never hear him. Now you're getting a lot of the Rubio because they're pumping him as the next answer to Donald Trump. You realize that's coming, right? We'll see if he'll be as big a pirate. What with him being the the next. Wasn't he supposed to be running Cuba and Venezuela mainly because he speaks Spanish? Isn't that what's supposed to be happening? Maybe he can entice Exxon to invest in the Cerro Negro heavy oil operation with the billions of dollars up front. Maybe somebody's not paying, but if they do pay, get more than the $300 million that they've gotten so far, and settle their unresolved grievances from the Chavez area, nationalization of their property. Countries nationalize stuff all the time. So what did America do? They went and nationalized Chinese investment themselves. We went down, took all China's investment in Venezuela, and sorry, it's ours now. We nationalized theirs. That's called piracy or theft, depending on how you look at it. So Trump's approach to petroleum economics, is theft first. You can order the Venezuelan government to issue a license to Exxon. You can remove a sanction for Venezuelan oil. It's been sanctioned forever, but now it's not. Now it's, we get the money because we're the ones that had to come down there, steal your narco-terrorist and charge him with possessing a machine gun. But we're now telling Exxon to come on down and sign your deal. Sign your deal of the day, right? But you can't. One thing you cannot do if you're Donald Trump, you're unable to order Exxon's board of directors to risk several $1 billion on a 20 to 30-year project in a country as unstable as Venezuela, right? Unless management of Exxon, not the U.S. government, believes that the property rights, the contract terms, the political system, any dispute resolution mechanism, and expected return on the whole project will survive several American and Venezuelan administrations. And that's what they cannot do. They can't. You can't guarantee that. This is short term. There's talk about Trump. I saw an interesting show yesterday. I forget which one. Was it Mearsheimer? I can't remember. Another Iranian show that I watched about what's going on in Iran of the same nature. You go in, you steal all their stuff, you bomb the crap out of them, and all to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. But the point of this show was that, now Trump would be willing to walk away. He's sick to death of Iran. He doesn't want to answer questions about it anymore. He can't go in and he can go in and bomb the crap out of him, but it hasn't given him what he wanted. And so he's really having troubles, allegedly, according to a couple of stories on an international level that says he wishes to just walk away, and that it's getting closer, the walk away. And the same thing's going to happen on the Chevron. Chevron is moving more aggressively than Exxon because it never truly left Venezuela and already had a bit of an operating infrastructure, some personnel, some joint ventures, and some debt that it claimed was owed it. And so much of its recent production increase has come from squeezing more output from its existing operation rather than building an entirely new petroleum industry from scratch. So Exxon would have to build it from scratch. This is why the money that was promised, I can't remember, it was an enormous amount of money promised to Venezuela from China, which is really what Trump is trying to say. Why in the world is China getting the benefit of these transactions when America and American companies need to go in and steal it because I said so? And because I'm doing this for America. This is a long-term project. It's not long-term because people don't like how you did it. Even Exxon and Chevron. Chevron was still there. They managed to stick it out. Exxon had their stuff taken from them under Chavez, so they're still, butthurt over that. And so nobody's ever, these are not issues that are just going to go away. This is also why it's so important that the rig count that's going on right now, this 2 versus 114, number of rigs is important or useful to examine, because ships leaving a port tell you that oil is being sold. A new drilling rig tells you that somebody is willing to risk new money on tomorrow's oil being sold, not today's. And so right now, the ships are moving, but the rigs are not. And so China and their point of view in this issue is especially interesting because there's a significant Chinese investment story. But it all predates Maduro's capture and therefore can't credibly, be credited to Trump. The China Concord Resource Corporation, a private Chinese company, had already secured a 20-year agreement to develop the Lago Cinco and the Lagunillas Lago fields in Lake Maracaibo, not sure I'm saying it right. A floating production and drilling platform arrived in 2025. The project was reported to involve more than $1 billion in planned investment, with the ambition of raising output from 12,000 barrels a day to 60,000 barrels a day by the end of 2026. So if somebody says nobody's going to invest in Venezuela, U.S. companies, they're not going to, but if you say that nobody's going to invest, it's going to take a while. But, that's a demonstrably false claim because China was investing. But if Trump is going to say to you, my intervention has now brought investment pouring into Venezuela, the Chinese project is actually evidence against that claim because that agreement and platform had already been implemented before the January 2026 intervention, right? Beijing's current public posture is also revealing in this regard. China's foreign ministry says that Venezuela retains permanent sovereignty over its own resources. Curious. How isn't that curious? And that Chinese commercial rights in Venezuela have to be protected. Yet when asked on January 30, after Chinese companies, they were asked, are Chinese companies planning to expand their energy presence after Venezuela changed hydrocarbon law and the U.S. got involved? The foreign ministry conspicuously did not announce any rush of new investment. It merely said it noted the reports and referred detailed energy questions elsewhere. So that's cautious behavior by China, too, especially under belts and roads. So Washington hasn't suddenly transformed Venezuela into some new investment paradise for any American or Chinese company. So what they've done is now they've harmed Venezuela for generations because not only are the American investment things not going to pop up the way that Washington was hoping, not without funding by the U.S. or something, more debt on the U.S. part, more guarantees of some sort. But now they've screwed up any chance at any investment into Venezuela by China. So, making friends around the planet is what America's good at. And here's another example of the great friends we make around the planet by telling them what they must do instead of suggesting something that they should do. But that never happens. So let's see if we can figure out what Caracas thinks about all this. This was the hardest part, trying to discover. The Venezuelan government's own presentation is far less grandiose than Trump's. Delcy Rodriguez has been promoting Venezuela as the newly reopened energy destination and is pushing for changes in the hydrocarbon law to make private and foreign participation easier. Caracas has announced deals or memorandums of understanding involving Chevron, Repsol, Shell, and others like I discussed up above. It even hosted, it's announced that it's hosting, and it's in October of this year, Venezuelan Energy Week. But again, Caracas' own January projection of $1.4 billion in 2026 is a world away from Trump's $100 billion project, that he was talking about, and the political sales pitch of piracy. We're going to steal this, and suddenly oil's going to flow. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be the biggest in the world. It's going to be huge. That's what's going to happen. But I don't know. Washington conquered the sales channel much faster than it has rebuilt the industry. The same argument is what a lot of people are making. Look around the world and you'll see the same arguments everywhere. Immediately after the January intervention, Big Oil wasn't buying this victory speech. Exxon and Conoco, Mobil, nobody's rushing to Venezuela. And Trump's $100 billion pitch is running into corporate, reluctance. So 7 months after that, the Wall Street Journal report is basically validating much of the original skepticism. That's why I think this was a good topic for today. And, and bringing it up, I believe, is important. I wanted to play something for you whilst I move along into segment 2. Let's see what we can do here. Here's a song I particularly like. And so when I was a kid, you used to listen to albums. You didn't listen to songs. You put the albums on because you didn't want to walk up and go walk across the room and put on a new 33 every 3 minutes. Or, a new 45. You wanted to put on the old long play album. And so you'd go over and put on an entire album. And so we listened to albums. And I wonder if kids these days are doing that, or if everything's the mix of one song, one artist, stuff like that. I still like the album sort of event that you get to listen to. I like that. And I'm going to play one from an album that I always used to like, and I would listen to it all the time. And this one is going to be, you can decide if you like it on your own, but here it comes.
Listen to the wind on the water. Listen to the waves up on the shore. Try to sleep, sleep won't come. Just as I begin to fade. Then I remember, when the moon was full and bright, I would take you to the darkness, to the tangle in the night. I keep the dream in my pocket. Never let it fade away. Inside, outside. No loneliness in this dream. But then I remember when the moon was full and bright, I would take you to the darkness, until the terror in the night.
do like the Tango in the Night album. And maybe I'll share one more with you here before we close up for today. I'm trying to figure out if I wish to go into the Maduro or if I wish to follow the oil. I think we're going to take a brief segue into what's going on in the Maduro machine gun challenges. And it's not fair for me to just call it the machine gun and possession of a machine gun. And it's a little bit, my framing of it might be a tiny bit exaggerated for radio, but it's, let's talk about what Maduro and Cilia Flores are charged with, right? Because the legal attacks that are ongoing are a little different. They aren't set for trial till friggin' June of 2027. So we're still a ways away. And this is nonsense. And there's some motion stuff going on right now. Sovereign immunity being one of them. So as of right now, Maduro and Flores remain in federal custody in a federal case before Judge Alvin Hellerstein in the Southern District of New York. Both have pleaded not guilty. Maduro is represented by a guy named Barry Pollock. Flores has appeared with a guy named Mark Donnelly. Trial is set for June 1, 2027. And Pollock has said the defense is going to challenge prosecution on the ground that Maduro is the head of a sovereign state and therefore immune. Hard to disagree with him, actually. The current superseding indictment was BS in toto. I mean, when I read that thing, it was like, oh, Jesus. Talk about stretching, The current indictment has 4 substantive counts, right? Maduro is charged in count 1 with narco-terrorism. In count 2 with conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States. How is he importing cocaine into the United States? It's friggin' ridiculous to even talk about it. He's exporting it from Venezuela. If he's done anything, he's exporting it. And he's not importing it. It's nonsense. He never, ever participated, came over and did it. And so arresting a foreign leader based on this is weak crap. I'm not saying it won't work. Nonsensical positions have prevailed before. And this is a nonsensical position. And this is somebody using the government to do as they see fit. You can stretch anything if you're the head of of an arm of government. You can do whatever you like. That's called overreach. And in America, we know all about overreach. We're very, very good at it. These are people who, especially attorneys that get into the system, especially on the U.S. Side. U.S. attorney side, and even in the, I talk about overreach all the time. I despise it. Drives me nuts. And but they all do it, and this is how you stretch it, and and here's the stretching. Maduro is charged in count 1 with narco-terrorism. Count 2, conspiracy. Cilia Flores hasn't been named as a defendant in narco-terrorism. She's not involved in narco-terrorism, but she is included in the cocaine importation conspiracy. And both are named in count 3, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and count 4, conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. Okay? The government, it's a tiny bit of a stretch for me to say they're charging Maduro with possessing a machine gun. The statute covers firearm use, that they're charged under anyway, covers firearm usage or carried during drug trafficking crimes prosecutable in a U.S. court, or possessed in furtherance of that drug crime. But how are they going to say that he possessed anything in furtherance of a drug crime if he possessed it outside of the United States? the hell is that? If he was running drugs inside the United States, if he's up crossing the border, flying a private plane, coming in and handing it over or collecting money coming over, I mean, this is the biggest stretch. This is the overreach crap. We can't arrest people who are clearly guilty of these things all over the planet, but we can go in and seize a foreign leader because we want their oil. That's a different story altogether, right? So the indictment expressly alleges that Maduro, Flores, and others used or possessed machine guns and destructive devices, the key words, in furtherance of this cocaine conspiracy, which apparently they can say in furtherance of even outside the country. You think a jury of his peers, who are his peers? Do his peers have to be people from Venezuela? Do they have to be other if you call him a narco-terrorist, well, maybe it should be other narco-terrorists. How you going to, or other world leaders? Maybe that would be the proper jury of his peers. How the hell are they going to get a jury that doesn't know about this? This is crap. The whole thing, across the board, nonsense. And it's a distraction. It's a way to seize a foreign leader, throw him in jail, forget about him for a while, make him completely irrelevant, and then settle something to get that. And the judge isn't going to do that. No judge is... To pretend that the judge is really... I shouldn't say stuff like that, but it's true. This whole thing, in my view, is a farce, and it's just nonsense. You don't go stealing a world leader. I mean, if you're doing that, well, it would be okay for any other country on the planet to take a group of armed bandits, fly into Israel, take Netanyahu, who is charged internationally with all kinds of crimes, and bring him into the ICC court. Execute the warrant, and just say, you justify it. So justifying the rules in pursuit of your own interpretation of those rules is something the U.S. is very good at. And I'm not anti-U.S. I'm anti-U.S. Just like I said to our caller, that I'm anti the U.S. creating its own rules and imposing its own rules on others, but never applying them to themselves. And I don't like ridiculousness. And it's ridiculous to indict someone for possession of a firearm in furtherance of a crime when you possessed that weapon on a foreign soil. That's crap. And it's just completely nonsense. And so... I can't imagine that they're ever going to be able to claim that he had a weapon on him in America. And I don't care if he had one on him in Venezuela in furtherance of anything that's outside the, put it to anyone else in possession of a weapon. So you're a drug dealer. You fly to the U.S. and you distribute drugs, sell them to somebody, whatever, bring them over in your airplane. But you're from another country. You're not Maduro. You're in another country. I don't care. Pick one. Canada. And you fly in from Canada. You own weapons, but you leave them back in Canada. You fly over. You give your drugs up, and you. Can the U.S. charge you with a crime for owning a gun in Canada? No, that's for the Canadian court to do. It's for the Venezuelan court to charge him with possession of a weapon in Canada. In Venezuela. So if you're doing the whole thing is, I don't know. I don't like it because it is so out there and it is such a stretch. The logical stretch and the logical leaps that have to occur to get you to believe this in your own mind. Figure out how to say, oh, geez. And it's easy to pick a side. And to say, oh no, I'm against Maduro, so it doesn't matter what the government says. We got to figure out a way to stop this guy, and that's a slippery slope that I don't believe This is indicative to me of the decay, the rot in the system. This is it. This is why I say our system is is doomed, because we're using it in this crappy, slipshod way across the board. Same beef I have with overreach and interpretations of your own based upon, whatever narrative you wish to sell. Well, that's what we're doing. This is the government of today. This is how it works. So America says Venezuelan presidents can't have machine guns, is apparently in furtherance of a crime, but you got to possess them in America. That's my problem with it. How the hell are you going to claim that you can't have weapons in a foreign country when you're the friggin' president of that foreign country? I don't know. The sovereignty, the immunity, and the extraterritoriality of it all is what's important. The United States sent military forces into another sovereign state, physically seized a man who had presidential authority with his wife, removed them to another court, and is now trying them under American criminal law. China officially called that forcible seizure a violation of international law, the UN Charter, and the basic norms of international relation, and still refers to Maduro as Venezuela's president. But nothing will happen because the U.S. can breach international law all it wants, and it does it all the time. And you can call others onto the carpet, but you can never, ever get challenged yourself except by China. And nobody's going to listen to China because the UN Security Council can always, one party, or the group of five, somebody can always veto and somebody always does. So it never gets anywhere. The International Criminal Court, nobody subscribes to it, especially the United States. They never enforce it. They're never going to. Maduro's lawyers are preparing exactly the argument that I would: head of state immunity. The government's answer is predictable. The superseding indictment describes Maduro as Venezuela's, they call him, and they do this on purpose, the de facto but illegitimate ruler, and notes that Washington has refused to recognize him as a head of state. That's not accidental. They're trying to say that he had no recognized head of state immunity as far as the U.S. executive branch is concerned. And there's another obstacle for Maduro these are convenient obstacles, by the way. The Supreme Court in United States versus Alvarez Machain is generally hostile to the proposition that an alleged unlawful overseas abduction automatically deprives an American criminal court of jurisdiction of the person once he's standing before it. But Maduro isn't an ordinary foreign criminal suspected of crimes and kidnapped in Mexico. That's how it usually works. They go to Mexico, pick up some cartel guy. They seize him, throw a bag over his head, bring him up to New York. But he's not the head of a foreign state. Maduro's not an ordinary foreign criminal picked up in, picked up in Belize while he's on vacation. The defense can argue that this involves U.S. armed forces invading sovereign territory and physically removing the person that Venezuela itself regards as its incumbent president. That places state sovereignty and head of state immunity much more squarely at issue than some drug lord in a Mexican villa somewhere. So that's the interesting lawsuit to me, not whether the presidential guard held AK-47s. So I don't know. I think it's important, I would like anything that they talk about in here. So the U.S., all they're out there selling for us is selling the, we had to do this because China was getting Venezuelan oil, and we can't have that. That's Western Hemisphere oil. Why in the world is it going to China? And so Trump is pointing to allegedly measurable results. I say they're not, and like we were talking about before. Venezuelan exports are up. Their four-season seizing Maduro's fine. Yeah, but it's criminal action you're after him for. None of these positives that they are talking about, the exports being up, any shipments to U.S. refineries being at their highest level since 2019, Chevron producing more oil, dormant rigs being at least discussing being repaired, new agreements with Chevron, Shell, smaller operators, but the administration marketed a spectacular reconstruction story, like we said. But I don't know. What are they going to say? They're going to say Maduro forfeited any legitimate immunity because Washington didn't regard him as lawfully elected. So Washington gets to decide, not his own country, not his own. They don't get to decide who they elect. We do. We get to decide who is a legitimate leader and who is not. So it's they're saying the conspiracy is about cocaine in the United States and narco-terrorism. We blew up all these boats. So I'm interested to see whether my eroding of trust in the government and in the legal system continues, or if the correct result comes out here. I don't know. These are interesting scenarios for me. But let's talk about this is oil in the ground versus gasoline in Missouri. And let's talk about Venezuela, Maduro, and the global oil map. Where is Trump's $100 billion Venezuelan oil boom? And was Maduro seized for that, or for narco-terrorism and possession of a weapon? I say, which is what's become clear to everyone right now, Maduro was not seized because of narco-terrorism and conspiracy to bring cocaine into America. That is not why he was seized. He was seized, according to everyone's theory of this, so that the U.S. could keep China away from Venezuelan oil, and the U.S. could seize any profits related to Venezuelan oil. That's what's going on. And if you need proof of that, all you got to do is look at the global oil map. Where is Trump's $100 billion Venezuelan oil boom? The Wall Street Journal said, that doesn't exist, but that's what Trump's been pumping ever since January. And 7 months, it's been, and American oil majors haven't made any commitments, large-scale commitments. And in fact, they're avoiding them because they know that they only got 2 years left, and things will change. And I don't think it's going to be any consistency with what's going on. I tell you what, there's. I don't want to say there's no investment, but all you're seeing is a little bit of incremental investment, a slight production recovery, no new contracts. Not in the level that Trump said, but there's no evidence of anything resembling $100 billion in private capital stampeding toward Venezuela. So I don't know. Let's see here. I want to get down to the Chinese and also, I was thinking of talking a little bit about what's going on with the Maduros while they're in jail. What are they doing? What are they eating? What are they wearing? What do they watch on TV? I wonder if anything like that is out there. They are in federal prosecution, and neither sought bail at the initial stage, and their trial is scheduled on, like I said, in June the 1st. Both of them are being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. It's a federal detention center at 8029th Street, and the Bureau of Prisons currently says there are 1,300 plus or minus inmates there. Maduro's confinement is more restrictive than any ordinary pretrial detention. Reporting indicates that he's being held under special administrative measures, which are effectively a highly controlled prison within a prison. He is segregated from the general population, subject to round-the-clock monitoring, and when moved within the institution, he's accompanied by multiple officers. Recreation is conducted alone in a secured area. Flores is housed separately, but I can't find any evidence that she's under identical SAM restrictions. You wonder what it's costing to house them. The Bureau of Prisons published that the national average cost for a federal inmate was $47,000 a year, or about $129 per inmate per day. That's using 2024 numbers. And using that national average, holding Maduro and Flores from January 3 through August 11 is about $57,100 for the pair. If they remain detained through June 1, the same national average calculation will bring up approximately $133,000, but that understates the true governmental cost of this particular prosecution. Why? Because Maduro requires extraordinary security. There are this special controls. There's federal transport. There's U.S. Marshals, Spanish interpreters, intelligence handling. There's going to be classified discovery. There are additional corrections officers whenever he goes anywhere. There are prosecutors, security personnel, and special courtroom logistics. You know, there's no specific daily detention cost that I was able to define or find, but it's not cheap. You know, who knows what they get to eat. I wonder if they have any special foods, and do they get them? Are they going to get the same, pork patty sort of meal that they throw you in prison? You wonder if MDC Brooklyn, Maduro looks thinner, does he not? We do not know whether the Metropolitan Detention Center has accomplished what no opposition politician could ever force on Nicolás Maduro, a diet. MDC Brooklyn has a notoriously troubled reputation regarding conditions and food quality, and former inmates and lawyers have made serious complaints about poor and spoiled food. The Bureau of Prisons disputes these reports, of course, but at his July appearance, reporters noted that Maduro was noticeably thinner than when he arrived in New York. So his son and supporters said that he is exercising and maintaining discipline, and there's been some visits and stuff like that. Was there any courtroom drama recently? We don't know, but there's a substantive July the 21st joint scheduling letter, document number 315, and tells us where the case is going next. The first round of major defense motions is due September the 2nd. And that one is specifically expected to contain Maduro's sovereign and head of state immunity challenge, which I guarantee you is going to be appealed by either party. Whatever the judge rules, he's going to be careful in ruling, and it will go to the Supreme Court. So it'll have to work its way through the appellate level, and then so we got another year and a half before we get anywhere useful on this. The government's opposition would be due on October the 2nd, and the reply brief would be due October the 16th, and the judge will set oral argument for November the 17th, and then there's a second round of defense motions for January 2027, with classified information litigation continuing into March and then the June trial. So the most important pleading everyone is waiting for doesn't even exist publicly yet. It will be the September 2nd immunity motion, and that one could be the dynamite that we're looking at. The July hearing that he just had lasted only around 15 minutes. Maduro appeared in a tan jail uniform, wearing glasses provided by Armani. No, I'm kidding. And reportedly appeared thinner than during his initial. He listened through an interpreter, interpreting headphones. He had a white legal pad and a black pen, conversed with counsel, and appeared upbeat. He smiled and waved toward the gallery as he was taken out. That's quite different from the image of a broken former president isolated in federal detention. His lawyer has made clear that the first major attack will be immunity and the circumstances of Maduro's seizure. And I'm interested in this one because can the theft of a country and its president and claiming that Marco Rubio is now the president assist in that regard? I would focus on the drama myself surrounding it and all of the comments that the president has made about why this occurred, and the ones where he especially has said, well, we did that. We needed to take that oil. This wasn't, well, what happened to all the narco terrorism? Haven't heard a word about it since. And arguably, you know what they're going to claim? Oh, it's because we destroyed it. Going in and taking Maduro, boy, we took it. Oh, yeah, that's right. There's no more cocaine coming into America now, is there? It's completely dried up. Nobody's made that argument. Nobody's made it. Nobody can prove that. I guarantee you there's still plenty of people being charged with cocaine possession and cocaine distribution. Plenty of them. So, tell you what, I'm very interested in the machine gun charge. I'm very interested in this immunity charge. I want to share with you the allegations against Flores because her indictment is much more specific. The government alleges that Maduro and Flores participated together in a cocaine. They had to, the U.S., in my view, this is me, in order to make sure that he had nobody speaking on his behalf remaining in the country. They had to take his wife too. They had to charge her with something. Whether any evidence existed or not, I don't believe that it mattered. They were going to take her anyway because they couldn't have him with a wife still in Venezuela. No way. She had to be taken too. So the government alleges that they participated in a cocaine importation conspiracy and used armed state personnel and armed groups in furtherances of that. Prosecutors accuse Flores of accepting bribes connected with traffickers seeking assistance involving Venezuela's anti-drug apparatus. So in a criminal case, the wording matters. The prosecution will need evidence that connects her personally to an agreement to import cocaine into the United States, not merely evidence that corruption or cocaine trafficking existed somewhere within Venezuela. That's going to be a huge evidentiary battle. How are they going to get her or him specifically talking about cocaine? You wonder what that is. The defense funding fight was extraordinary. One of the strangest pieces of courtroom drama has already occurred. Maduro's attorneys argued that U.S. sanctions were preventing the Venezuelan government from paying for Maduro's chosen American defense lawyer. Think about that. The United States seizes Maduro, brings him to New York, prosecutes him, blocks Venezuelan funds, and then creates a situation where the government Maduro says he headed cannot use its own money to pay the lawyers defending him from the United States. That's crazy. Barry Pollock argues that this threatened Maduro's Sixth Amendment right to counsel of his choice. Judge Hellerstein did not dismiss the case, but took the funding problem serious enough to put substantial pressure on the government. Subsequently, the applicable licensing structure was modified so Maduro's lawyer could accept certain payments from the government of Venezuela using eligible funds available after March the 5th. The defense then withdrew that particular challenge as moot without prejudice. So this is an excellent illustration of the bizarre use of U.S. court for this intersection of criminal law, sanctions law, and regime change policy, because the same people prosecute him had to release funds from his government so that his defense could be paid. The real legal fight is going to be this immunity battle that's coming up. This is the real fight. And I hope they do a good job of this. Maduro's defense is going to argue that the U.S. used military force to enter a sovereign state, seize the person who had presidential authority, remove him and his wife, transport them out of the country, and prosecute them under American criminal law. That just sounds BS, no matter how you slice it. China's government has taken that essentially that exact same position at the international level, so have other people. And they characterize it as a violation of Venezuelan sovereignty. International law, the UN Charter, and they demanded the couple's release. The DOJ, of course, we all know what they do. You know, they'll attack anybody for anything. Doesn't matter. You go after Trump, you make stuff up. That's what they do. They just make stuff up. Then they've already built its answer in the indictment. They repeatedly characterized Maduro not as a lawful president, but as a de facto illegitimate ruler. It's not decoration. It's their immunity argument. Washington will claim that we didn't recognize you as the legitimate head of state. Therefore, you don't receive immunity normally attached to the recognized head of state. And Maduro's answer to America is going to be, American recognition policy cannot give the United States authority to determine who the president of another sovereign country is. Cannot give them power to invade the country, abduct the incumbent, and make its own non-recognition decision the reason that the abducted president has no immunity. That's a seriously legal and constitutional argument. There's another potential political complication. The U.S. subsequently dealt with Delcy Rodriguez as Venezuela's head of state in other legal and diplomatic contexts, and the U.S. position concerning her immunity reflect that status. That doesn't automatically give Maduro immunity, but she's immune. They're recognizing her. She's not the lawfully elected person. Politically exposes how much this doctrine depends on executive recognition. They recognize her as legitimate. One Venezuela leader is illegitimate on Monday, and another one can acquire status on Tuesday because Washington's foreign policy position changes. Wonder what Biden called him. We'll have to get into that. For a courtroom supposedly adjudicating criminal conduct, according to neutral law, the dependency on the administration itself and its own administrative judgments, not the judgment of a court. These are farcical, and I've been paying attention to this one for, and I'm gonna be, because I'm interested in this. I hope you are as well. I've enjoyed today's show. Tomorrow I'll try to get into the entertainment of it all, because there's plenty of entertaining stories out there to be told. And I'd be happy to share some of them with you. And I intend to do so. You can listen to us at damradio.com/live. You can listen to all past programs at damradio.com/podcasts, or you can go out to internationalflavor.com and listen to them We hope that you join us again tomorrow on the biggest day in radio. It's Wednesday, so a big radio day for us. And other than that, we hope you have a very nice Mid-Missouri day. Talk to you tomorrow.